Hey guys, and welcome to a showdown between the two brave warriors. Red Salamander on the left leading the forces of the Tomb Kings to the Plain of Spiders to fight the Bretonnians, who are going to be led, of course, by Way. Should be a good fun game, and it's going to be highlighting both the strengths and weaknesses of mass artillery. So let's get in here and have a little look at the builds. So, really glorious formation from the Tomb Kings. I've gone over this type of build before, this formation, I should say. We have a bit of a pointed start there. So, you're not in a completely flat battle line. This tends to force enemy cavalry and other units to go a little bit wider if they want to push into your back line. So, a really good defensive positioning. We also have a secondary battle line of more elite troops in the form of Tomb Guard to back up these skeleton warriors who are going to be taking the initial brunt of the enemy firepower. For the range, we do have double Screaming Skull Catapults, originally considered a bit of a meme unit. They're actually pretty damn good. They also give a lovely negative to enemy leadership. If we have a little look here, take cover for minus 10 seconds. Or for 10 seconds, sorry, minus 8 leadership, which is pretty scary stuff, especially if you're a humble peasant bowman, which these units do excel at killing. We have the Grand Kutep as well here on his mighty, horrific looking unit, which is the Casket of Souls here. He's going to be bringing Sandstorm to help clear out chaff, Arcane Conduit, we have the Incantation of Desecration, as well as Vengeance, Incantation of Protection, and the Incantation of Cursed Blade. So all the good stuff, and of course he has his Leech Staff with him, but his main job once again is going to be assisting the Screaming Skull Catapults in taking down the enemy chaff as well as Archer Corps, but at the same time Focus Fire can drag down some Knights. We have double Skeleton Spearmen protecting the back line, as well as one unit of Necropolis Knights. These guys are so scary to face on the battlefield. They're real slippery devils, of course, being on top of snakes. They're actually quite hard to shoot and whittle down. They have pretty decent armor, as well as a bronze shield, but they poison you, they slow you down, and they have pretty decent attacks all round. If a nice little look here. 40 armor, pierce, and weapon damage is certainly no joke. Now, these aren't the halberd variety, but still can do pretty decent work up against large threats. On the flanks as well, we have some horsemen protecting them, and deep in cover, we have some carrying. It looks like 2 units on one flank, and some more horsemen on the other. Now, for the forces of Bretonnia, going in a more traditional battle line here, a big old long wide formation of men-at-arms, looking to push the enemy as quickly as possible, and engage straight away whilst wrapping around. We have a ton of peasant bowmen as well. Looks like pox arrows and fire arrows mixed in together here in a secondary battle line. Peasant bowmen, very good for their cost. There's just so many arrows flying through the sky. It doesn't matter that they're all pretty terrible shots. If there's a huge sway of arrows covering the skies, darkening them, then eventually they're going to hit something. Leading the assault, it seems we have a Damsel of Life with Regrowth and Earthblood, and then we have a ton of cavalry, a lot of them on this right-hand side in the form of Knights Errant, who are a little bit more cheap and cheerful, but they're alongside the Companions of Quinellis, who are hopefully going to be, buffing these guys up, encouraging them to greater feats of heroism. These guys have armor piercing, anti-large. They are arguably the best cavalry unit in the entire game. Very deadly stuff. So healing those guys up is going to be really helpful. In the back line, we do have triple filled trebuchets trying to look and put a bit of potential damage on the enemy from afar. And they're protected just by some peasant mobs, which is relatively risky. I'd rather have the peasant mobs in the front line and sacrifice 1 or 2 men-at-arms, I think, to have back here. But yeah, that's just me. But still, peasants, you can't have a Bretonnian force without some glorious peasants. And they should be able to help force off carrying at least for a while and buckle the enemy, or at least hold the enemy back and not buckle too much while the Knights Errant do return to the field. We have King Leon Kerr flying high above the sky here on his mighty beast. He is a scary combatant indeed. He's appeared in multiple replays of me recently on his little beaky here. And with the Sword of Corone as well as the Lion Shield, he's one of the scariest duelists in the game and is incredibly tanky with his regeneration. But in comes the first shots. The Screaming Skull Catapults going after the infantry. They're just going to ignore the fact there's 3 trebuchets here and focus on doing their job. And it looks like the mighty DJ Kutep himself going to be launching some shots in. Let's track those glorious shots up through the sky, and they're going to be aiming at the peasant bowmen, which is always a really good target. These guys, of course, have terrible armor, terrible leadership. Force them off the field early can be very good stuff. Men-at-arms are wavering already, and it looks like the Tomb Kings are going to be taking advantage of this by charging in to the already shaken units, breaking them and doing some really lovely damage, forcing them back, although the Knights are ready, as well as the King, to respond to this threat. So good micro here by the Tomb Kings as well, bringing their units back as quickly as possible, although they may get slightly caught here, but if he's a little bit careful, he should be able to retreat with the majority of his forces. And look how much of the Bretonnian troops are battered and fleeing the field already. The Kaharian horsemen on this unit, it looks like a few of them have been caught up, but most of them are making their escape from those pesky knights. But there is not too much anti-large here. No spearmen, no halberds or anything like that. So the knights can charge in with a little bit of impunity here, as they are not getting currently shot. It's the peasantry taking the worst of the damage, which sums up Bretonnia rather nicely. Carrion have decided to swoop in after the field trebuchets, and this is kind of the problem with the peasant mobs being back here. They can hold them off for a while, but they're not going to be able to kill them. The Carrion will eventually be able to drag down the trebuchets, and the knights have had to commit to the front line to break down the enemy catapults and damage they're doing at long range. So it looks like the trebuchets may unfortunately be seeing an early grave here. Peasant bowmen just taking huge damage all across the board. Skeleton warriors are engaged in the front line up against men-at-arms. Not going to be the most heroic or glorious of battles as bones grind against shields. But, it's a way to die, I suppose. King Leon Leoncoeur floating up in the sky, probably going to go for an assassination attempt, and there's not too much here to stop him. The sneaky snakes need to engage as quickly as possible in an attempt to drag him down. It looks like the Swallow Crone has been popped as well. The DJ is currently bumping and grinding up against Beaky, but that's certainly not a fight he wants to take for too long. Tomb Guard are going to rally to the cause, and Tomb Guard are anti-infantry, but they have pretty decent stats all round. And it looks like with the combination of the sneaky snakes plus the Tomb Guard is going to force the king up into the skies. The Katep surviving just about for now. It looks like both Scream Skull catapults completely fully operational still, despite taking some damage. The trebuchets, on the other hand, two of which are wavering, soon to be broken, and even the peasants are starting to break as well, rather than the carrying, which is certainly bad news for them. Field trebuchets still have all of their artillery pieces, but it doesn't really matter if there's no one left to man them. It looks like none of the knights are riding to their aid either. Over on this flank, Skeleton Horsemen have been caught up by the Knights Errant. Knights Errant will certainly be happy to take this engagement all round, charging in there and finish off troops. We can see Bretonnian forces are starting to break and shatter all across the battle lines, but despite this, the Tomb King front line not having the best of days. This simple, just sheer mass of filthy men-at-arms pushing through is doing some really nice damage all round, and it looks like we do have a sandstorm coming down, clipping quite a few of the men-at-arms just as I kind of pick them up. They do start to get slaughtered. The good cycle charging by the companions in the front line has allowed them to get 48 kills. A regrowth as well, going to keep them nice, alive and healthy. But the king really struggling to finish off Kotep here. These snakes just dogging him wherever he goes. Maybe the Bretonnians are accidentally thinking these are the anti-large variety. If I was the king, I would actually probably charge the knights here rather than constantly get counter-charged by them. Charge them, do your huge damage and try to finish them off as quickly as possible. Then he will have free reins off the back line. Companions trying to push around this right-hand flank could now come in and pressure the Screaming Skull catapult. It looks like an Earthblood is going to be healing them, but a huge burst damage does come through, slaying so many models there with one hit. Really lovely shot there by the Tomb King Lord. King once again comes down to try and snipe him, but he's going to be forced back and surrounded once again by the sneaky snakes. We also have the incantation of protection going down and buffing up these knights, meaning they're going to be able to take on the king a little bit more effectively, although some fire arrows are now starting to rain in from the peasantry now that the Screaming Skull catapults are focusing down the knights instead. In the back lines, it looks like the last trebuchet has just about been dealt with, and a few of the Bretonnian forces need to be rallied and brought back to the fray. But to be honest, the Tomb Kings now have map control, chasing off units left, right, and centre. We have Skeleton Warriors in the back lines, Skeleton Horsemen and Carrions, so a lot of the Bretonnian troops which do try and rally probably aren't going to have too good of a time. Tomb Guard are going to push forward as well, those mighty shields raised high to shut down the peasant bowmen. The Mighty King dragging himself to safety, a really nice use of the Summon of Ushopti, but great play as well by the Bretonnians to realise the threat and get out of here with the King. Wait for the Ushopti summon to disappear. Well, it looks like they're going to be bounding, in fact, towards the Knights, and Ushopti aren't the slowest troops in the world, especially when they've got their attack animation up and raring to go. So some of these poor Knights Errant may discover what it's like to be a true Knight of Bretonnia, and that is to be battered by crazy creatures from across the old and new world. It looks like some of the Knights Errant may not be up to the challenge here, starting to waver almost instantly, but a lot of the Bretonnian cavalry should be able to escape here and try to come back in. But the Tomb Kings have been allowed here to kind of redeploy a lot of their lines. Screaming Skull catapults still have decent ammunition on them and can fire into a lot of the troops, which will hopefully rally to the cause. This Screamer Skull Catapult did for some reason leave its artillery pieces, getting ready to charge into glorious hand-to-hand combat, and the DJ is continuing to shoot into troops, just forcing off peasants wherever he sees them. And he has some crazy long range there, firing halfway across the battlefield. And it looks like it's pretty much game over unless the king can assassinate Kutep here and turn the game on its head. But these pesky knights, when buffed up by all these glorious spells, are actually an absolute nightmare to deal with for the king, who's being consistently forced back here. Balance power is currently Tomb King favoured, but you Shopti are going to be disappearing soon, which should drag it slightly more even. Knights Errant falling back now to their trebuchet crews, getting 2 of them back online, and perhaps a late resurgence is on the table here. If the trebuchets are allowed to consistently fire into all the Tomb Guard, do some decent damage, maybe the king can carry. He probably needs to turn and fight this at this moment. He's just taken 3 damage here from the snakes. He needs to turn, engage. They've been dragged away from the rest of their allies here. Come back in with the Knights of Quenelle and hammer down these knights who have been a huge pain in the butt for the Bretonnian forces. 0 kills, but if we look at the damage, 2,000 damage value with 0 kills is insane stuff. Knights of the Errant are rallying to the cause here. It looks like an Earthblood is going to be coming down. They need to engage and save the king as quickly as possible. Damsel Life has been forced off by some rather annoying carrion here. It looks like Bretonians did kind of spot their chance to succeed, but a little bit too little too late there, unfortunately, as the Knights are going to be dragging themselves back, and the fire base is once again online. Screamer Skull catapults up to 70 and 99 kills. The DJ, 163. Scary stuff. Bretonia's falling back, though. Is allowing them to get those trebuchets to get some pretty decent value now, aiming at the Tomb Guard. King swooping in once more, and now the Knights are away from their Liege Lord, but taking a huge catapult shot to the face. Some Skeleton Spearmen are going to get in here, and a huge barrage of volleys hits the king directly in the face as he comes in for the final showdown of Ultimate Destiny. Trying his best here to drag him down, but Sword of Crone has been popped as well. The DJ standing his ground, taking the fight to the enemy with his bum there, actually, kind of just grinding in to the king, who's decided to fall back once again. I understand the need to kind of cycle charge, but he hasn't been able to really finish off any key threats here, and is constantly been getting caught by the Knights and dragged down. And with him going down here, which seems at least taking a huge amount of damage, and the Knights being hit by the Screamer Skull catapults, I think this is most likely game over. Field trebuchets are going to continue to fire in, one of which needs to hop on its crew, but it looks like Bretonians may have given up at this point. A load of the forces are kind of just standing around by both players, so maybe they're having a little bit of a chat at the death here, as it is pretty much over, as the king, even with stand your ground, simply isn't really going to be able to escape this with any portion of decent health left available. Knights are now going to be charging back in. Looks like he was just simply trying to micro the king away here in a desperate attempt, but he's so close to breaking now, so close to routing, and leadership bouncing between 1, -1, 4, -1 again. I think he's, pretty much doomed for at this point. Screamer Skull catapults are firing into Knights now because of the low leadership of the Bretonnian forces, considering the balance power is so heavily against them. That discourage will even affect the mighty noble Knights here. A lovely sandwich as well, Skeleton Horsemen and Spearmen pinning in at the Knights of Quenelle, although they do get a glorious counter charge to go out with a bit of a bang, carving their way through as many deadly horrors as possible before they do go to meet the afterlife. I'm not sure what Bretonians believe in afterlife-wise, but close victory there for the forces of the Tomb Kings, and a really fun game all round. Massive shout out to both the Red Salamander and Way for a fantastic game. 2 guys who have been featured on the channel. Way recently getting some fantastic victories as well. So, coming up to show he is in fact mortal here. If you guys did enjoy the replay, feel free to give the video a big old thumbs up and subscribe for more Total War Warhammer content. We do drop content every single day, and we are getting dangerously close to 3,000 subs, at which point, of course, we will do a celebration stream. What we're probably going to do is do a celebration stream for every 1,000 subs we get, up till 5,000, and then we'll probably bump it up to 7,500, 10,000, so on, just like that. But anyway, really awesome stuff. So, for the forces, how did they perform? King Leon Leoncoeur, despite constantly getting countercharged quite heavily by those Seeky Snakes, still got some pretty good value, but again, he is rather expensive. Nearly 5,000 damage dealt and over 2,000 damage value. The problem for him was that he really wasn't able to kill his intended targets. He was trying to snipe the enemy lord, something he's very good at, but unfortunately couldn't quite manage it. I think a better use of his time would have been to charge the snakes instead, force them off the field, and then he would have free reign up in the skies. Apart from that, the men-at-arms did okay, trying to force their way through the kind of bony line, as well as the peasant bowmen, but overall, especially the peasant bowmen, really struggled here, and that was because of the artillery barrage coming in from the Tomb Kings. Trebuchets managed to recoup some of their value in the late game there, but the peasant bodyguards really did not work, unfortunately, and the cavalry managed to swoop in and deal with them. The real backbone to this Bretonnian build, what managed to drag them into it, was the king and the knights, doing some effective cycle charging, trying to grind down the enemy. As for Red Salamander, of course, the glorious Scream Skull catapults, some of them didn't get the best value because they are shooting low-cost infantry. But, it allows other units to perform even better, and him to have as much of his own chaff, which isn't being ground down by the enemy, to protect the back line, but other ones as well getting huge damage across the board. 109 kills is scary stuff. MVPs, honestly, probably the Necropolis Knights here. 0 kills as well on an MVP unit, seems a bit funny. But overall, 4,600 damage dealt, pretty much all to the king, and a glorious amount of damage value as well. Carrying, swooping in, taking out the trebuchets was pretty clutch. Tomb Guard didn't have to get their hands too dirty, and a few of the skeletons just got evaporated, but others held the line relatively well, and the DJ as well, bombarding the opponents from long range, even doing some big shock damage to the king on that final assault, and slowly starting to whittle down the knights. Anyway guys, hope you enjoyed. Until next time, peace, and as always, stay awesome.